still to this day is a slight misconception when it comes to coaching where it's used as a stick rather than a carrot. But I think the way you kind of experienced it is the way I see it, where Slack wouldn't have invested into getting you and supporting you with the executive coach unless they really believed in your development and growth. Hey, Alan. Good seeing you.
Hey, Justin. Good to see you.
How's it going?
It's going really well.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's been a while since we caught up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Alan Shim. I moved to Singapore 2.5 years ago. Before that, I was the CFO of Slack, early employee there, 20-person company when I joined.
Yeah.
And then we saw it through our direct listing and then ultimately an acquisition by Salesforce. Before that, I worked in Yahoo and Yumi, a couple other internet companies. Kind of cut my teeth in the internet. And then I started my career in financial services. So these days in Singapore, I'm trying to advise and meet early startup founders and trying to give them my perspective and take on how to grow their businesses.
Yeah, amazing. And you mentioned that you joined Slack when it was only 20 people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty wild.
In the early days when it's 20 people, and as you're probably very familiar with, a lot of it is, there's a lot of different things that need to get done, and there are not that many hands to do it. So I was sort of a jack of all trades, because at the time when I joined, we had our CEO, Stuart, our CTO, Cal, our head of customer experience, which is what we call customer support, Ali.
Yeah.
And then we had me in terms of kind of leadership roles. And so if you exclude what they had, then I was sort of in charge of everything else. So I was managing IT or legal and finance and accounting, but also real estate and facilities and just office management. I mean, for the first couple months, we didn't even have an office manager. So I was ordering food for the office and things like that. So you do what you need to do to get the job done, and then quickly it changed as the company was growing very, very rapidly at the time. And so my role became a lot more specialized towards finance-specific things around, I'd say, strategy and finance there, to make sure that we were not just preparing for what was happening in the given quarter, but really for the next 1, 2, 3 years.
I mean, it sounds like it's evolved. It had evolved like pretty dynamically. But I just want to take a step back, and actually, this just came to my mind. Curious, what drove you to join Slack at a 20-person sort of company stage?
Yeah. I found it fascinating to learn about just how the internet actually makes money, because it's not immediately obvious, I think.
Yeah.
At the time, it was now called the mid-2000s. Startups were becoming very in vogue. And so I wanted to join a startup, which was Yumi, which was about 30 some odd people when I joined. That really showed me the difference between, Yahoo was 6,000 plus employees when I left, and billions of revenue, and Yumi was just getting started. Thankfully, Yumi worked out pretty well for us. We did end up taking the company IPO, and then about a couple quarters after that, I was looking for a new opportunity. And so I told myself, well, listen, I really want to be focused not so much on the quarterly earnings, but I want to be focused on the long-term growth plan and just thinking about how to build this business up again. And so when I kind of poked my head around for opportunities, I got connected to Stuart Butterfield, who was the co-founder of Slack. And he showed me, they had just gone GA with their product maybe a few weeks before I'd met him.
Wow.
But he was showing me these charts that they were kind of very up and to the right, really high growth charts, growing 20, 30% week over week. And he was saying, hey, listen, we can handle all the product and tech stuff here, but I need someone to help me with all the kind of the business stuff that really I don't want to manage. And I said, listen, I know that. That became a really good fit for us. My wife was actually the first person to use Slack in our family. She was one of the early kind of beta testers, if you will. She told me, this one I think is has high potential, and you should give it a chance.
And I know you've already spoken publicly about this or written publicly about this, but you mentioned that when you joined, you kind of did have a longer term goal or vision of one day becoming the CFO. And you've publicly mentioned that, that was sort of almost like a maniacal goal that you had.
Yeah, I think it is really about ambition. I think those that do startups at an early stage, you have to be thinking a lot bigger than the job that you see in front of you. Right? You have to believe that it's going to be 100x bigger, 1,000x bigger, many, many orders of magnitude bigger than what it is today. And with that comes this, I would say, almost expectation that what you do and how you are recognized and what you're responsible for also will grow commensurately, if not faster than that.
Yeah.
And one thing that, for me, when I joined, I was always reporting to Stuart, so I was always reporting to the CEO. I felt like, wow, I already am the CFO, just in terms of an org chart perspective. And what I learned over time is that, what I kind of think about this evolution between, the level 1 is kind of an individual contributor, and level 2 is sort of a manager, and then level 3, I would say, is being a leader. That each of those transitions is very significant. And I think likewise, you might be able to manage people on your team, and you're responsible for the collective output there. But leadership is another level on top of that. And I realized with the CFO level that the bar was much higher than I was. And not that it was just higher in terms of things that I knew, but it also was being measured on different criteria. I think that took some time. It took some maturing, honestly, as a person. And likewise, the board recognizing my contribution and ability and potential to continue to grow from there.
I think there's a reason why we don't see a lot of cases where someone stays 8 years at a startup, right? Because that stage when you join 20 people, super scrappy, super early versus, when you guys did direct listing, those contexts couldn't be more different, right?
Sure.
And I think that if you're gonna survive and adapt throughout that journey, you have to also level up.
Yes. So one key thing for me was I actually received executive coaching pretty early on. I also was connected to some mentors early on. So that was, Sarah Fryer, Tim Cabral, these like very accomplished people, were willing to spend time with me and just kind of build this relationship. The coaching side was something that I was quite skeptical of in the beginning, to be honest. And the board's feedback was, listen, he needs to develop in, so many ways here. But one of the avenues that the company was very generous in offering was sort of the one-on-one executive coaching.
Sure.
In the beginning, I thought it was very kind of kumbaya, woo-woo, it's all like get in touch with your feelings, sort of thing. But what I found was that, done well, it really allowed me to help myself work through challenges I was going through, hold myself accountable. And that was really, really important, to have that regular kind of health check. And someone else to say to me, hey, listen, do you hear yourself saying that?
Yeah, it's stuff you had inside you already, right?
Yeah, really helping me to not either pull it out or reframe it.
I think that's a super important point, where I think there, still to this day is a slight misconception when it comes to coaching, where it's used as almost a stick rather than a carrot, in terms of, hey, you're not performing well enough, so we're going to get you a coach to rectify that behavior. Just for my own personal curiosity, in that journey, was the company making revenue when you joined?
It just started generating revenue a month before, although it had the benefit of being in a kind of a beta kind of preview period for about 6 months before.
So super early.
Yeah. So effectively, we were writing the first invoices when I got there.
Yeah. So effectively, you went from 0 to, I don't know.
We ended at $1 billion AR when I left.
Okay, $1 billion AR, right? In 8 years. That's insane. But were there any particular revenue milestones that, looking back, were, that kind of stand out?
The history of Slack is that, we designed, or the team designed a product that they thought would work well for them. And pretty quickly, we realized, wow, this product can and should work better for companies that are much bigger than us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we were only a, call it hundreds of person company, but we had our first multi-thousand seat deal, and then 10,000 seat deal, and then 50,000 seat deal. We were like, wow, and then hundreds of thousands of people at IBM. It was this very, very insane realization of the scale that we needed to build to support that, but also the value that we were creating for organizations that were as complex as they could be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does feel like a treadmill sometimes, right? Like, I remember when we started out, our first deal was for like $1,000, and then $10,000 deal, and then $100,000 deal, and it just kind of goes on. Sure. But I think, the things that, looking back, I wish we did a better job of, is also kind of celebrating the big ones, right? And taking just a moment to reflect and see how far you come.
One thing we did that was, I thought, really special, because obviously we use Slack religiously at Slack. We had a channel that was first called Accounts and later became called Sales,
right?
Where we would pump all the deal wins into the channel, so that, and pretty much everyone in the company was in this channel. They could see deals that we were
Wow.
winning,
Yeah.
right? Because engineers in particular build this thing, but they rarely see the result of it, right? And so that was one way to kind of create this tighter feedback loop. But what was really cool was if you were on Slack on January 31st, you would just see the channel just lighting up, lighting up. And what was really amazing is the sales team developed a culture of giving gratitude and props to everyone. So it wasn't just, hey, here's like a little bot that kind of, without emotion,
Yeah.
pumps out some stats.
Yeah.
It was a salesperson actually doing a write-up saying, hey, thank you to these engineers,
Oh, that's really
and
cool.
these product
Yeah.
people, and these marketing people, and these finance people helping with the billing through, and legal people, and it became, this, I don't know, like this song of appreciation
Yeah. Yeah.
that would happen, like clockwork.
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
each
That's really cool.
fiscal quarter. Yeah.
Super cool. Alan, thank you so much for your time. I think, there's so much I learned personally from this, but appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.